For all the time I've played Pokemon games, there's been one thing I've always wanted to finish: a hardcore Nuzlocke. A recent interest in the 2025 VGC season and some good placings on the ladder for someone who's never played VGC before got me interested in the idea of attempting one. I also thought if there's any game that's going to be the most fun and challenging for me, it would be a Pokemon Violet hardcore Nuzlocke, all the way to the Ed Sheeran copyright claim. That means all 18 badges as well as the Turo fight. The rules are, I only get one Pokemon per area, every Pokemon gets a sentimental nickname, and if a Pokemon faints, it dies. Additional rules are on screen now if you want to read them. For my starter, I picked Sprigatito because I've already played this game, but the Calaxley and Fuecoco is too broken to make this video interesting. I battle against Goku in her backyard, get my Pokeballs, and the run begins. Scarlet and Violet start with you catching Lechonk, so I decide immediately to release Heresy as forcing counters are stupid. Scarlet and Violet are a lot different than older games, so just running into the first Pokemon I see denies me a lot of encounter variety, so for my encounters I'll be using the pin drop method. And since I'm not playing the game blind, I drop a pin and grab Not Pikachu the Palmy. Almost died to the least stable cliff of all time and follow the Metal Sandwich Dragon out of a cave. I also grab Felon the Yungoos on my way out. Me and Nimona find Pokemon Daddy issues at a lighthouse and steal his Miraidon as we grab Advil the Psyduck. After Criminal disposes of Nimona, we meet up with Team Star, save a Femcell and get the Gimmick Orb. Then finally we can go to school and finish the tutorial. That only took about an hour and a half.
Scarlet and Violet are the first open-world Pokemon games, so for brevity, here's the order I'll be completing the badges. I decided the best way would to just do them in order of the level cap instead of doing whatever badge in whatever order. Which means our first stop is the Bug Gym, which is not great considering I picked the Grass starter. For my encounter, I got Captain the Tadbulb. I know he has a very I know, just ignore it, okay? Like any good Nuzlocker, I walked into the gym with a massive disadvantage, feeling super confident. It's the first gym. There's no way anything could go wrong in the first gym, right? With a few lucky bite flinches, Criminal was able to deal with the Nimble and Tarantula with some help from Advil. Then came out the Teddiursa. Without a good switch, I just switched in Captain and took a massive amount of damage. But luckily, I got a static proc. So by sacrificing Captain to bring Advil in safety, we were able to finish the first badge with only one death. With a death already, I needed to make sure I got good encounters for the upcoming gym. And I got one. I caught Arson the Chart Cadet and I was super excited. Ceruledge is so awesome and I couldn't wait to get one. It's got a great typing, good setup moves, lifesteal, priority, and one of the best new Pokemon, especially for a Nuzlocke, and I was so excited. Why does Spit Up have 200 base power? Why does a trainer have it before the second gym? Why? Luckily though, an evolved Criminal took Cloth down pretty easy, and I went to go for my next encounter. Since Paldea areas are huge, I decided I would be able to catch Titan Pokemon to help spice up my encounters a little bit more. An extra little risk-reward scenario. And it turned out to be definitely more risky as Advil got crit turn 1. I was able to catch Mudslide, but with 3 deaths before the second gym, it wasn't looking too great for my chances. I was able to grab Berta the Toadschool and Hellfire the Bagon. Unfortunately, Berta was over the level cap, so I couldn't use her, but Hellfire did know fire-type moves. I didn't think just Hellfire would be enough to beat the Sudowoodo though, as Grass Rock is a super threatening offensive typing. I evolved Not Pikachu and got access to the move Nuzzle, and with Nuzzle, I could formulate a decent plan. I used Hellfire and Not Pikachu to storm through the fodder before Brassius sent out Sudowoodo. Then, Not Pikachu nuzzled the Sudowoodo to make it so that it was always slower and wanted to use Trailblaze, a grass-type 50 base power move. Then, sacrificing Not Pikachu, I brought in Criminal, who both was much faster than Sudowoodo and resisted Trailblaze. With Bite, I was able to paraflinch the Sudowoodo, trapping it into either not moving or only using not very effective attacks. Slowly but surely, Criminal beat the Sudowoodo, and I got my second badge. Another early game death wasn't great, but considering the tools I had, I feel like I made it out as well as I possibly could have. Mudslide really started showing his merit on the way up to the Open Sky Titan. Having a Pokemon with all 30 IV, Shocker, makes him very good. He made quick work of the Sky Titan, and because of that, I thought that catching the thing would be easy. Bombardier never stayed in the ball, and also had the move Torment, which means I had to be constantly switching moves so I couldn't reliably chip it down with Cloth. I decided to sack Hot Sauce the Capsicum in order to reset the torment, but then I ran out of balls, so I just decided to run, and I ultimately failed the encounter. With the ability to swim unlocked, I decided to grab some new encounters. I got Flood the Buizel and Migraine the Hatena. Next up was the first Team Star base, and I was feeling pretty confident. I was able to easily clear out the base and was ready for their leader. I decided to lead with Mudslide and was ready for another crab sweep. I decided to click Rock Tomb, and little did I know that his Pawniard had Defiant. For those of you who don't know, Defiant is an ability that raises the Pokemon's attack stack by 2 stages if its stats are lowered by an opponent. Pawniard then revenge killed Mudsdale with a crit. I sent out Hellfire to do some chip damage with Ember, but they barely did 25%. Pawniard then almost one-shot Hellfire, and I decided it would be best to get the chip damage down on the Pawniard and let Hellfire die. I then sent in Criminal to clean up, but I still had to deal with the Revavroom. Every Team Star raid ends with a type change, special ability having, custom move given, doubled HP Revavroom. And if Criminal can't beat it, there's a high chance I'm gonna wipe here. The Dark Team Revavroom also has Intimidate and just gutted my attack stat. I only did about 15% and I got hit hard. As I set up Hone Claws, I got hit with Metal Sound. I then took a big risk and used Seed Bomb, and I did more damage, but I got hit with another Metal Sound. I then swapped to Berta to take the Snarl, but then she got outspeed and killed by Wicked Torque. I swapped Criminal back in and Revavroom started to use Snarl, which was super fortunate. He used Snarl enough times so that I was put into Overgrow. The ability gives a 1.5 times boost to the same type of that Pokemon, and in this case, Overgrow boosted my grass moves, which were also getting boosted by Grass Terra, and Grass Stab gave Criminal a 2.5 times boost to Seed Bomb. I then dodged a crit and was able to beat Revavroom. With too many open spots, I needed to make sure that my next encounters were good, so I dropped my pins at some ruins and got some awesome encounters. I got the Boys the Phalanx, Jane the Tinkertuff, and EMP the Wattrel, who unfortunately was above the level cap. Taking Felon out of retirement and a couple Terra Raid dens later, I was ready for the Electric Gym. And this time, there won't be any more unnecessary deaths. Felon was able to learn both Bulldoze and Ice Fang, and with the Strong Jaw ability, I was able to one-shot Iona's Wattrel. With the Wattrel out of the way, I can bring Criminal in to set up in front of Bellybolt, who only knows Spark and Water Gun, and who only really does damage when its ability is activated. 3 Hone Claws later, and I was able to get a clean kill on Bellybolt and Luxio. And by dodging the confusion, I was able to clear the gym badge deathless and finally make it out of the hellish early game. Oh yeah, and I guess Iona is like a streamer or something. Like and subscribe, I guess.
I went and got Riptide the Sandygast with the special Grass Terra. Unfortunately, Sandygast sucks, but it's the best I'm gonna get.
Next up was the Fire Crew.
I was able to chip down the Torkoal with Sand Tomb and the boys, and with Flood and EMP, I was able to eventually chip down the Revavroom because Floatzel just doesn't get a good water move until level 41 for some reason, so I just had to spam Aqua Jet until the Revavroom finally fainted. My next stop was the Lurking Steel Titan in a brand new encounter, Queso Jr. the Hariyama. And Queso Jr. had Guts. Guts is an infamously good ability because Burn, a status that usually cuts your attack in half, boosts your attack by 1.5. So by fighting against the local Carcoals, I was able to burn Queso Jr. And with the combined naturally excellent defensive Hariyama and Guts, I was able to easily sweep the Titan. And I was also able to catch it after getting Worm, our new encounter. When you have a grass and electric Pokemon, the water gym isn't really that hard, but for some reason I just let EMP die for like no reason. I have literally no idea why this happened. There was no reason for him to die whatsoever. Sorry EMP, you deserve better. Heading on over to the Poison team and a newly evolved Hannah the Farigiraf, I was feeling pretty good about this gym. And if you hadn't noticed yet, this is what I say when something terribly wrong is about to happen. Worm got hit with some sucker punches and flinched a few times because of stench, but after plowing through the Stunky and the Revavroom, Worm was on too low HP. So I decided to swap to Hannah. I also underestimated the amount of damage Stored Power would do after an agility, and I risked Hannah's life for no reason, and she died. I was able to heal up Worm as Muck had no way of damaging him with only poison and ground type moves. Unfortunately, the Revavroom knew Flame Charge and also set up Toxic Spikes, and I could only chip it down to 25% HP before I had to switch out. With the Toxic Spikes and a +3, it was super hard to switch into it. It chipped down my entire team, and I ultimately had to sack my newly caught Strudel in order to bring Flood back in and finish the Revavroom off with an Aqua Jet.
With 2 unnecessary deaths, I needed a big win, and luckily, when you're facing a normal type gym leader with a bulk up guts Hariyama, it's kind of hard to lose. But then, Nemona decided to become the luckiest trainer of all time. Most of her team was pretty easy to deal with, but her Kokwayvel turned out to be more troublesome than I thought. After Queso landed a crit drain punch and left the Kokwayvel on 5 HP, I thought it was over, but then Queso Jr. got flinched twice. I then thought I could easily finish it off with an Aqua Jet from Flood, but on the switch in, he got crit by Aqua Step and Kokwayvel raised its speed. I then sent in Criminal and she also got flinched. This series of events had a 0.1% or a 1 in 1,000 chance to happen. Luckily, the Terra Grass made it so the Kokwayvel wanted to Air Slash again, so I was able to safely switch in Worm and had to hope that he lived in Aqua Step. Thankfully, Worm's defense is goated, and Kokwayvel doesn't know close combat by this point, or I probably would have wiped right here.
Heading up to Montevera, I caught Frostbite the Citadel.
That's a surprise tool that'll help us later.
Also, when you have a dark type starter Pokemon, the Ghost Gym is barely even worth mentioning, so on to the next Titan. In Violet, the Quaking Earth Titan is Iron Treads, a pretty fast Paradox Pokemon. Since Iron Treads is a Steel type, Hariyama just packs it up. Afterwards, with the tank that is Worm, I was able to throw enough Pokeballs to catch Terminator. Now it was time for some backtracking, as the next badge on our list was the Psychic badge. On the way up the cave, I caught Riot the Toxtricity, and then challenged the gym. And this gym challenge might be my least favorite in the whole game. It's so boring, in fact I was just mashing buttons to finally get through it. I could barely keep my eyes open, but I have a dark type and this is a psychic type gym. I've got absolutely nothing to worry about. After this death, I remember I was in a silent rage. I had been careless again, and this death is a really big one for a lot of reasons. Tulip wasn't even a problem, as my steel types handled her pretty well, but I was wondering if I could even beat the game anymore. I simply do not have enough coverage remaining in my box anymore, and I only have 6 available encounters, 2 of which are water encounters, and 1 is the last Titan, which is a water type. I'm not playing this game blind, so I pulled up the wiki and started planning out my routes. I need to make sure every moment from here on out has every single endgame fight in mind, or there's no way I'm going to even make it out of the Pokemon League, let alone reach Turo. Thankfully, Grusha wasn't that big of a deal with all my Steel-type Pokemon, and immediately after I headed down to the Fairy Crew. After Worm and Terminator tore through Ortega's team, they were both damaged, and in order to reset the confusion on Terminator, I sacked Jane to bring him back in safely. And to replace the Fairy type we just lost, right outside I caught Eclipse the Sylveon. I was able to find the Terra Dragon Gyarados in Casaroya Lake, and with Eclipse I was able to remove its Terra. The Gyarados set up 2 Dragon Dances, and I knew if I couldn't catch it right now, my run was probably over. But unfortunately, this encounter is too good to not pass up. So, I threw the ball, and it stayed in. And with my new friend Wrath, the false Dragon Titan went down nice and easy. Heading on over to the Fighting Crew, I was able to catch Batman the Low Kicks, and after some grinding, Migraine rejoined the team as a newly evolved Hatterene. After making it through her team, Eclipse was able to put Ares Lucario to sleep with Yawn, and I was able to set up 2 Calm Minds. Unfortunately, my team was all chipped, and I knew that if I couldn't beat the Revavroom here, I was going to get swept. And, to make matters worse, Revavroom knew Steel Roller, a very strong Steel-type move. I knew if that Eclipse didn't survive the incoming Steel Roller, I was going to lose. So, I decided to roll the dice, click Moonblast, and prayed. Eclipse held, and I was able to collect all 18 badges. After passing the Who's My Favorite Gym Leader and Let Me Google Their Town Name interview, I stepped in, ready for everything this game was going to throw at me. I led with Eclipse, who learned Magical Leaf and could one-shot the opening Wish Cache. I then swapped into Wraith to tank the incoming Flash Cannon. Camerupt used Yawn, and I was able to KO with Waterfall, knocking out the Camerupt. I had also given Wrath a Chesto Berry, so I didn't have to worry about sleep. The Dawn Fan has Stone Edge and Sturdy, so I can't safely knock it out with Gyarados. Thankfully, a switch into Terminator lets me eat up the Stone Edge. I PP stalled Donphan with Gyarados and Terminator, switching back and forth, baiting Stone Edge and Earthquake respectively. Once Donphan was out of Stone Edges, I swapped Wrath back in and started setting up Dragon Dances. I got poisoned, but I was able to KO Donphan and Dugtrio. Once Clodsire came in, I swapped to Frostbite, and since Clodsire used Protect, I was able to KO Clodsire without fearing a crit, and moved on. The plan for Poppy is pretty similar. Leading Wrath, I was able to set up a Dragon Dance on the Stealth Rocks. Next turn, I KO'd Copperajah with an Earthquake. On the incoming Magnezone, I Terrored to Dragon to resist the incoming Thunderbolt and brought it down to Sturdy. I was able to outspeed and KO Magnezone, Corviknight, and Bronzong. When Tinkaton came out, I swapped to Terminator to take the Play Rough, and then outspeed and KO with Earthquake. When I was planning for this Elite Four, I was really worried about Larry. Sure, I could win, but I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to win Deathless. Larry's team is weirdly good against Terra Dragon Gyarados, and Terminator can't hit any of them with its ground-type moves. But then, after looking at all of my Pokemon's move pools, I found my answer. The Titan can learn Belly Drum and Ice Shard, but Belly Drum is an egg move, and with breeding off the table, it would be a dead end. But in Scarlet and Violet, there's this item called the Mirror Herb. If one of your Pokemon has an empty move slot and is holding the Mirror Herb, another Pokemon that has a learnable egg move by the Pokemon holding Mirror Herb get into a picnic with both of those Pokemon, and the Pokemon holding Mirror Herb will learn the corresponding egg move. And you want to know who knows Belly Drum? Even though he's not here, Queso Jr.'s spirit lives on in Frostbite, and since Tropius always sets up Sunny Day on the first turn, it was a simple Belly Drum into Ice Shard sweep. I had a similar plan to Haxel's fight, and good EV training on my part made sure that after the Noivern used Super Fang, my HP was low enough that Citrus Berry would trigger, which means I can then set up a Belly Drum and sweep him as well. Gita is known for not being that difficult, but there are threats I need to be aware of. I can't start setting up immediately thanks to Opportunist Espathra, and I need to make sure I position well or King Gambit will definitely take some KOs. And this time, it was Batman's turn to shine. Low Kicks is an extremely good Pokemon into the Gita fight, and almost KOs the entire team by himself. After Batman KOs Espathra, Gita sends out King Gambit, and with the wide lens, I'm able to land an Axe Kick and take out King Gambit. And with King Gambit out of the way, Terra Steel Terminator is able to clean up the rest of her team, and I'm able to walk out of the Pokemon League feeling awesome. Seeing my strategies and team building pay off in my most dominant Pokemon League performance ever while hardcore Nuzlocking made me feel super confident in this team. And we weren't done yet. Next up, I headed on over to Arvin, and his team just loses to Wrath and Eclipse, but I was pretty worried about Clavel. If I didn't KO Skeledirge quick enough, Terrifier Torch Songs had a really good chance of getting out of control. I was able to first impression the Oranguru and U-turn out on the incoming Gyarados. I brought in Riot and outsped and KO'd with Overdrive. Clavel then sent out Abomasnow, and I was going to use his Snow Warning to my advantage. With Frostbite's Belly Drum and ability being Slush Rust, I was able to KO Abomasnow, Poltegeist, and Amoonguss. I swapped into Wrath to tank the incoming Torch Song, then Wrath KO'd with Waterfall after dodging a Shadow Ball crit. Penny just has an Evolution team, so the only real thing to note about this battle was the music. Like, why does it go so hard for such an easy fight? And finally, the real champion fight of Scarlet and Violet, Nemona was here. I led Terminator to KO her Lycanroc. I then baited in Palmont and KO'd it with Earthquake. Nemona then sent out Orthworm. I don't have a good answer to this Pokemon, so I have to dodge a crit on Batman. Batman holds, and I'm able to KO Orthworm. I don't want to risk Batman's life on Axe Kick not KOing, so I U-turn to Terminator and hope that it doesn't use Drill Run. Terminator eats up the Hyper Drill and KOs with Earthquake. Goodra comes out and I swap into Eclipse on the Muddy Water. Thankfully I dodge the accuracy drop and Goodra hits me with the Sludge Bomb, but I retaliate with the Moonblast. Eclipse easily eats another Sludge Bomb and KOs with Moonblast. And then out comes Quaquaval. I swap in Wrath to get an Intimidate down on Quaquaval. With the Intimidate, Riot was able to survive the incoming Ice Spinner and Aqua Step, and then KO Quaquaval with Overdrive. With all storylines completed, all that was left to do was descend Area 0 and fight Turo. the last hurdle between me and victory. After finishing my first ever hardcore Nuzlocke, I was super proud of myself. After wasting so many Pokemon in the early game, I wasn't sure I could do it anymore. But after good prep, decision making, and a lot of luck, I was able to beat Pokemon Violet's hardcore Nuzlocke. Let this be a lesson that no matter how dire it may seem, as long as you have patience, perseverance, and a wiki, you can overcome any challenge. Also, how the hell does Logan the board guy have more subscribers than us? What's going on, guys? Subscribe now.